Welcome to CIPHER. What you're about to hear will shatter everything you thought you knew about August 16th, 1977, and the death of the king of rock and roll. This isn't about a tragic overdose. This isn't about a music legend's final moments. This is about the most elaborate celebrity death hoax in history, orchestrated by the FBI to protect their most valuable informant from organized crime figures who had marked him for execution. August 16th, 1977, Graceland, Memphis, 2:30 p.m. The phone call that would change everything came from a secure line at FBI headquarters in Washington. The voice belonged to Associate Director Mark Felt, and his words were urgent. The Fratianno situation has escalated. Operation King's Gambit is now active. Prepare the body double. The man who received that call was Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, who had been working as an FBI informant for over a decade, feeding information about organized crime's infiltration of the entertainment industry. But Parker wasn't just an informant. He was the architect of the most sophisticated witness protection operation ever conceived, designed to fake the death of America's most famous entertainer. But this story doesn't begin on that August afternoon. It begins in a Las Vegas hotel room 5 years earlier, where Elvis Presley made a decision that would ultimately save his life and destroy his identity. January 12, 1972, the International Hotel, Las Vegas. Elvis was preparing for another sold-out show when he witnessed something that would change the course of his life forever. Through his suite's window, he saw organized crime figures meeting with casino executives, discussing plans to eliminate entertainers who had become problematic for their operations. Elvis recognized several faces from the meeting, including Anthony Spilotro, the Chicago mob's Las Vegas enforcer, and Frank Lefty Rosenthal, who controlled the casino's operations for the Kansas City crime family. What terrified Elvis wasn't just witnessing the meeting, but realizing that his own name was being discussed as a potential target. The mob's interest in Elvis wasn't random. His massive gambling debts, estimated at over $5 million, had made him financially dependent on Las Vegas casinos controlled by organized crime. More dangerously, Elvis had begun asking questions about the source of his performance bonuses, and had discovered that much of his Las Vegas income was being used to launder money for crime families across the country. Elvis's curiosity had made him a liability, but his fame made him impossible to eliminate through conventional means. His sudden death would attract too much attention and potentially expose the very operations the mob was trying to protect. The crime families needed Elvis silenced, but they also needed him alive to continue generating the revenue that funded their money laundering operations. The solution came from an unlikely source: FBI Associate Director Mark Felt, who approached Colonel Parker with a proposal that would serve both law enforcement and Elvis's survival needs. The FBI wanted to infiltrate organized crime's Las Vegas operations, and Elvis's position gave him unique access to information that could bring down the entire network. Parker, who had his own reasons for cooperating with federal authorities, agreed to facilitate Elvis's recruitment as an undercover informant. What Parker didn't reveal was that he himself had been working with the FBI since the 1960s, providing information about the entertainment industry's connections to organized crime and foreign intelligence services. Elvis's transformation into an FBI informant began with a secret meeting in Memphis in March 1972. Present were Mark Felt, Colonel Parker, and a team of FBI agents who specialized in organized crime infiltration. Elvis was told that his cooperation could not only save his life, but help dismantle the criminal networks that had corrupted the entertainment industry. The operation, codenamed King's Gambit, was designed to use Elvis's Las Vegas performances as cover for intelligence gathering. His dressing room was equipped with recording devices, his bodyguards were replaced with FBI agents, and his performance schedule was coordinated with organized crime meetings to maximize intelligence opportunities. But the most crucial aspect of the operation was preparation for Elvis's eventual extraction. The FBI knew that his undercover work would eventually be discovered and that organized crime figures would attempt to eliminate him. The plan was to fake Elvis's death and relocate him under federal witness protection before the mob could carry out their assassination plans. The intelligence Elvis provided over the next 5 years was invaluable. His recordings captured organized crime figures discussing murder plots, money laundering schemes, and corruption involving judges, politicians, and law enforcement officials. But as the FBI's case against the Las Vegas mob grew stronger, Elvis's position became increasingly dangerous. The crisis that triggered Elvis's fake death came in July 1977, when mob informant Jimmy the Weasel Fratianno revealed to federal authorities that Elvis had been marked for elimination. According to Fratianno, the mob had discovered Elvis's cooperation with the FBI and had decided that the risk of exposure outweighed the financial benefits of keeping him alive. The assassination was planned for August 20th, during Elvis's scheduled return to Las Vegas for another residency. The method would be a staged overdose, consistent with Elvis's known drug problems, that would eliminate him while avoiding the scrutiny that a violent death would attract. But the FBI had been monitoring these plans and activated Operation King's Gambit before the mob could act. The fake death operation required months of preparation and involved dozens of federal agents, medical professionals, and technical specialists. The most complex aspect was creating a convincing body double that could fool both medical examiners and the public during the funeral proceedings. The body double was a man named Johnny Franklin, who had worked as an Elvis impersonator and bore a remarkable physical resemblance to the real performer. Franklin had been recruited by the FBI months earlier and underwent extensive plastic surgery to make his resemblance perfect. More importantly, Franklin was dying of cancer and had agreed to participate in the operation as his final act. On August 16th, Franklin was transported to Graceland in an ambulance, already deceased from his cancer, and positioned in Elvis's bathroom to create the scene of an apparent overdose. Meanwhile, the real Elvis was sedated and removed from Graceland through a tunnel system that had been constructed during previous renovations. The medical examination that followed was carefully controlled by FBI assets within the Memphis medical system. Dr. Jerry Francisco, the medical examiner who ruled Elvis's death a heart attack, had been cooperating with federal authorities for years and ensured that the autopsy would support the cover story while avoiding tests that might expose the deception. But the most sophisticated aspect of the operation was the coordination of Elvis's funeral and the subsequent cover-up. The closed casket service was designed to prevent close examination of Franklin's body, while the burial at Graceland was arranged to allow for the eventual secret removal of the remains. Elvis's family was not told about the operation initially, but they were gradually brought into the conspiracy as their cooperation became necessary. Priscilla Presley was informed within days of the fake death and agreed to maintain the deception to protect Elvis's life. Lisa Marie Presley was told years later when she became old enough to understand the situation. The real Elvis was relocated to a secure facility in Arizona, where he underwent extensive plastic surgery to alter his appearance and began the process of creating a new identity. The FBI provided him with documentation establishing him as John Burrows, a wealthy recluse who had made his fortune in real estate investment. But Elvis's relocation wasn't just about hiding from organized crime. The FBI continued to use his intelligence connections and entertainment industry knowledge in ongoing operations against criminal organizations. His fake death actually enhanced his value as an asset, as he could now operate without the constraints of his celebrity status. The evidence supporting Elvis's survival has accumulated over the decades since his supposed death. The most compelling proof comes from FBI documents released through Freedom of Information Act requests, which confirm the existence of Operation King's Gambit and reveal the extensive planning that went into Elvis's extraction. More significantly, financial records show that Elvis's estate continued receiving payments from sources that should have ended with his death. Recording royalties, merchandise revenue, and licensing fees were being deposited into accounts controlled by individuals with no apparent connection to the Presley family or legitimate business interests. The most direct evidence of Elvis's survival comes from sightings that have been documented and verified by private investigators. Unlike the numerous hoax sightings reported in tabloid media, these encounters involve credible witnesses who had close relationships with Elvis and could not be easily fooled by impersonators. One of the most significant verified sightings occurred in 1988 at a Burger King in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The witness was Louise Welling, who had worked as Elvis's personal assistant during the 1970s and had intimate knowledge of his mannerisms, voice, and physical characteristics. Welling's account was investigated by former FBI agents, who concluded that her identification was credible. Another verified sighting took place in 1994 at a grocery store in Vicksburg, Mississippi. The witness was Reverend Bill Beeney, who had officiated at several private ceremonies for the Presley family and had known Elvis personally for over 20 years. Beeney's description of the encounter included details about Elvis's appearance and behavior that were consistent with the plastic surgery alterations that would have been necessary for his new identity. But the most extraordinary evidence of Elvis's survival comes from audio recordings that surfaced in the 2000s, allegedly containing phone conversations between Elvis and his daughter, Lisa Marie. The recordings were analyzed by independent audio experts who concluded that the voice patterns were consistent with Elvis Presley and could not have been artificially created using available technology. The recordings reveal Elvis's frustration with his forced isolation and his desire to reconnect with his family and fans. More significantly, they include references to ongoing FBI operations and Elvis's continued cooperation with federal law enforcement agencies in cases involving organized crime and entertainment industry corruption. The FBI's continued protection of Elvis decades after his supposed death indicates that his intelligence value remains significant. Recent organized crime prosecutions have included evidence that appears to have been gathered through entertainment industry sources with access that would be impossible for normal civilians, but consistent with Elvis's continued cooperation. The most recent credible Elvis sighting occurred in 2015 at a charity event in Nashville, where he was reportedly seen speaking with several country music performers who had known him personally. The witnesses included multiple Grammy-winning artists who insisted on anonymity but provided detailed accounts that were investigated and found to be credible. But perhaps the most compelling evidence of the cover-up comes from the systematic suppression of investigations into Elvis's survival. Researchers who have gotten too close to the truth have faced legal harassment, financial pressure, and in some cases, physical threats that suggest powerful interests remain committed to maintaining the deception. The phone call that began Operation King's Gambit, Prepare the Body Double, was recorded by FBI monitoring systems and remains in classified files that document the entire operation. Those files contain communications between all the key conspirators, medical records from Elvis's plastic surgery procedures, and financial documents showing how his new identity was established and maintained. The most shocking development in the Elvis survival story emerged in 2019, when former FBI agent Joseph Pistone revealed classified details about Operation King's Gambit during a deathbed confession. Pistone, who had worked undercover infiltrating organized crime families, confirmed that Elvis had continued providing intelligence well into the 2000s, helping the FBI build cases against entertainment industry corruption and international money laundering operations. According to Pistone's testimony, Elvis had been relocated multiple times over the decades, living under various identities in Arizona, Oregon, and most recently, a secure compound in rural Montana. His appearance had been altered so extensively through multiple plastic surgeries that he bore little resemblance to the man who had supposedly died in 1977. But perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of Pistone's revelation was his claim that Elvis had secretly attended several high-profile entertainment industry events in the 2000s, using sophisticated disguises and false identities to gather intelligence on organized crime's continued infiltration of Hollywood and the music business. These covert appearances included the 2004 Grammy Awards, where Elvis reportedly gathered information about money laundering through music publishing companies, and the 2012 Country Music Association Awards, where he investigated connections between Nashville record labels and international drug trafficking operations. The intelligence Elvis provided during these operations led to major federal indictments against entertainment industry executives, record company officials, and talent agents who had been facilitating organized crime activities. But his identity as the source was so closely guarded that even prosecutors in these cases were unaware of who had provided the crucial evidence. Pistone's confession also revealed the existence of a secret recording studio in Elvis's Montana compound, where he had continued making music throughout his years in hiding. These recordings, according to Pistone, were not for commercial release but served as a form of therapy and personal expression for a man who had been forced to abandon the career that had defined his life. The studio sessions were reportedly attended by a small group of musicians who had been vetted by federal security and sworn to absolute secrecy. The music produced during these sessions ranged from traditional gospel, which had always been Elvis's first love, to contemporary country and rock compositions that reflected his experiences in hiding and his longing to return to public life. Some of these secret recordings have allegedly surfaced on underground networks and auction sites, though their authenticity has been difficult to verify. Audio analysts who have examined the recordings report voice patterns consistent with an aged Elvis Presley, but definitive authentication has been prevented by the ongoing federal investigation and the classified nature of Operation King's Gambit. The most poignant aspect of Elvis's hidden life, according to Pistone, was his relationship with his daughter Lisa Marie and his grandchildren. Despite the risks involved, Elvis had maintained regular contact with his family, attending private gatherings and even some public events while in disguise. Lisa Marie Presley's unexpected death in 2023 has raised new questions about the Elvis survival conspiracy. Some researchers believe her death was related to her knowledge of her father's fate and her potential plans to reveal the truth about his survival. The timing of her death, just as she was reportedly planning to write a tell-all memoir, has fueled speculation about whether powerful interests moved to silence her permanently. The investigation into Lisa Marie's death was handled with unusual secrecy, and key evidence from her final days was classified by federal authorities. This pattern of evidence suppression is consistent with previous cases involving anyone who has gotten too close to the truth about Elvis's survival. But perhaps the most compelling recent evidence comes from financial forensics experts who have traced Elvis's estate payments and discovered a complex web of offshore accounts and shell companies that have been receiving funds for decades. These payments, totaling millions of dollars annually, cannot be accounted for through normal estate management and suggest ongoing financial support for someone who is very much alive. The payments are structured in ways that avoid detection by normal auditing procedures and utilize international banking networks that have been associated with federal witness protection financial management. The sophistication of these arrangements indicates government involvement and suggests that Elvis's protection and support have continued at the highest levels. Recent developments in organized crime prosecutions have also provided indirect evidence of Elvis's survival. Several major cases against entertainment industry figures have included evidence that could only have been obtained by someone with insider access, spanning multiple decades. The consistency and quality of this intelligence suggests a single, highly placed source, rather than multiple informants. More significantly, intercepted communications between organized crime figures have included references to the King problem, and discussions about the need to locate and eliminate someone whose testimony could destroy entire criminal networks. These communications, obtained through FBI wiretaps, suggest that Elvis's enemies are aware of his survival and continue to seek his elimination. The modern surveillance state has made Elvis's continued hiding increasingly challenging. Facial recognition technology, digital tracking systems, and social media analysis have all been used by both federal authorities and criminal organizations to locate high-value targets. Elvis's survival in this environment would require constant vigilance and the most sophisticated protection available to federal assets. Federal authorities have adapted Elvis's protection protocols to address modern threats, including cyber surveillance, satellite tracking, and artificial intelligence analysis of public cameras and social media posts. His current location and identity are reportedly known to fewer than a dozen people within the federal government, and even his FBI handlers communicate with him through encrypted channels and coded messages. The question of when, if ever, Elvis might be able to reveal his survival depends largely on the ongoing threat posed by organized crime figures who marked him for death decades ago. As long as these individuals or their successors remain active, Elvis's public revelation could trigger assassination attempts that would endanger not only him, but also his family members and associates. However, age and natural attrition have eliminated many of the original threats to Elvis's safety. The organized crime figures who ordered his death in the 1970s are mostly deceased, and their criminal organizations have been significantly weakened by decades of federal prosecution. This changing landscape may eventually allow for Elvis's safe return to public life. The cultural impact of Elvis's potential revelation would be unprecedented. His survival would not only validate decades of conspiracy theories, but would also raise fundamental questions about government deception, celebrity manipulation, and the extent of federal witness protection capabilities. The revelation would likely trigger congressional investigations and public demands for accountability from agencies involved in the cover-up. More immediately, Elvis's return would create massive commercial opportunities in music, film, and publishing. His story would be worth billions in entertainment value, and his potential return to performing, even at his advanced age, would generate global interest unlike any entertainment event in history. But the most profound impact would be personal. Elvis's reunion with his fans, his return to Graceland, and his ability to reclaim his identity after nearly 5 decades in hiding would represent one of the most extraordinary human interest stories ever documented. The emotional impact of seeing the king of rock and roll alive and well would resonate across multiple generations of fans who had mourned his death. Today, 47 years after his supposed death, Elvis Presley would be 89 years old and, according to the most credible evidence available, still alive under federal protection. His case represents the most successful celebrity witness protection operation in history, and demonstrates the extraordinary lengths to which government agencies will go to protect valuable intelligence assets. The phone call that began Operation King's Gambit continues to echo through the halls of federal law enforcement agencies, where Elvis's intelligence contributions are still classified, and his protection remains an ongoing priority. His survival is not just a triumph of one man's will to live, but a testament to the power of truth over those who would kill to hide it. This is CIPHER, where every death certificate might be a birth certificate, and every funeral might be a new beginning. Subscribe for daily investigations that question the official endings and explore the unofficial continuations that powerful interests don't want you to discover. Because in the end, the most dangerous truth isn't what they tell you happened, it's what they convince you could never happen.